Such grim details, and we can confirm now that 76 people at least have died, and among them, of course, were 7 children. It has emerged that the people living in this building were living in squalid, unsafe conditions without proper services. The building was being run by hijackers, and there were locks on the gates at different levels of the 5-story building. Well, Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu has caused something of a stir on social media after she said this morning that apartheid is to blame for the blaze. She said, whether we like it or not, this is a result of apartheid that kept people apart in these conditions. The minister joining us shortly. Minister, I think you can hear me already. Let's listen to the context in which you were speaking.
Thank you very much, Francis. And I think I'd like us to put into context why I said what I said, because I was being asked questions and I was responding to questions. And therefore, my first point, unfortunately, I'm just driving to the place itself because we agreed we're supposed to meet the people at 5 o'clock and I got stuck on traffic. But I'm on my way to Marshalltown now, where we promised that we were going to come back to the people. The context under which I raised that issue, it was based on a question. So I don't really think it is correct for people then to behave in a way that does not put the entire context of why I refer to apartheid, which is a fact. Whether we like it or not, that is a fact. And the fact was that I was referring to one, Johannesburg was never built for so many people. Johannesburg was built for a few people, and democracy came in, and there was freedom of movement of people to go and move and live where they could and where they wanted to live. That was the context under which I raised the issue of apartheid, because apartheid, spatial planning, spatial development is still sitting with us, and it's very difficult for us to make sure that a place that was meant for just a few thousand maybe ended up with more than 3, 4, or maybe even 5 million people. That was the context under which I said that. I was not under any circumstances justifying things that have not been done right in as far as the city and ensuring that people get better places to live, the overcrowding that we see and so forth. So I think that people must stop picking up stompies on the streets and making what I said, and because it's convenient for them to say so. Yeah. I was responding to a question, but I still maintain and I still say, had it not been that people were not supposed to live in Johannesburg in the manner in which they live now, from a point of view of the buildings that were built not for black people who flooded the place when freedom came. It was on those bases that I was saying so. Yeah. Not because I think we should just simply and only put the blame on the infrastructure that was developed for a few people. I was responding to a question that was asked.
All right, Minister, thank you for that clarification. Do you understand some of the frustration from some quarters, because this was owned by a government, a municipality? Apparently, your department, the provincial department, leased it for a while. So you have 2 government entities here. You have clear criminality here. So shouldn't government take full responsibility, the government that has been in charge of those institutions for decades, when criminality like this has been allowed?
You absolutely, I agree with you that where we need to take responsibility, we must take responsibility. But as a matter of fact, this building belonged to the Department of Social Development. They leased it in order for it to be a shelter for abused women, which is a policy of this government that cares for ensuring that women and children are taken care of. However, it is also a fact that this building, when then the lease ended, this building was hijacked, and this building is now under one of those 60-something buildings in Johannesburg that were hijacked. And this building does not, as we speak at the moment, is not a building that belongs to a Department of Social Development at a provincial level in its state now, because it is one of those buildings that was hijacked.
Yes.
And the lease that had been agreed upon had also lapsed. So we need to put that into perspective, because again, I'm repeating myself. Right now, what is of major concern to us is the human disaster that has happened and what we need to do to make sure that this that happened here does not repeat itself. Now, for that not to repeat itself, it's not just government alone that must step up and deal with it. It is, one, the police and law enforcement ensuring that this issue of buildings that have been hijacked and thugs running around and collecting money. I was here this morning. I'm here back again this afternoon. It's very clear that there are people who are making money out of these hijacked buildings. We were told that somebody collects rent for the people who live here. And I wasn't told by other people. I was told by the people I found here in the morning that I spoke to, the same people that I've come back to engage with right now. That is fact.
Minister,
I think that as a Department of Social...
May I just pick up on something you said? You said that government can't take all the responsibility. Police should also be blamed, but police are part of government. As far as I understand, government has the monopoly over the use of force. Can you confirm that this building was hijacked? I think way back, according to reports, 2017, there was already a court case. So that would mean that for 5, possibly 6 years, hijackers have been allowed to demand that rent and to exploit those people, and those people have been allowed to live in those conditions.
Well, that's why I'm saying to you, right now is not a time for us to be pointing fingers at this one and that one. Right now is a time for us to say, this is what has happened. So many years down the line, a building has been hijacked.
But
this is not the only building.
Can
I please finish?
Sure.
Allow me, you asked me for an interview. Allow me also to answer you as you are requesting.
Sure.
This is a broader challenge of the city where you have more than 60 buildings that have been hijacked. And in those 60 buildings, there are ordinary men and women and children who live there who shouldn't be living there. And this is why I'm saying to you, we must take responsibility in ensuring that buildings like this, the law enforcement, which, by the way, may I say, Minister Begitele had already started on the process of Operation Fiel or Operation Shanyela. Part of that operation is to make sure that these buildings that have been hijacked are taken back. For those buildings that belong to government, government must take responsibility and take them back. However, more than the 60 buildings that we have here, some of the buildings do not belong to government. Many of those buildings were abandoned, and people took advantage of abandoned buildings and decided to hijack them and make people pay rent when there's nothing that is happening, no services whatsoever are happening in those places.
Minister, can we just confirm, in this particular incident, government does own the building. When the lease by the Social Development Department lapsed, it reverted back to the city of Johannesburg. And can we agree that that happened 5 or 6 years ago and nothing has been done in all that time?
Let us agree that the reason why government and through the Minister of Police and the police took a decision to come and raid some of these buildings, it was also on the basis that these buildings are illegally occupied. These buildings also have got people who do not even have documentation for being in South Africa. These buildings, therefore, there is a plan to take those buildings back, and unfortunately for us, right in that process of looking at those buildings and which of those buildings need to be taken back that belong to government. Unfortunately for us, this is now what has happened to one of the more than 60 buildings that we are talking about here. So government, both at national, provincial and local, have to come together and speed up the process that they already started, which didn't start yesterday, a process which started already to say, let us get back the city, let's get back the buildings, and let us clear people out. However, this is also what must be understood. You can have people who have illegally occupied buildings. When you have to remove people from these buildings, you have to make sure that you know where are these people going to be going to, because the lives of our people, whether they are national, South African or non-South African, as long as they are here, if we have to move them from any building, we must make sure that they have alternative accommodation. Otherwise, we can't come here with boots and be kicking people out of buildings without offering alternative accommodation.
Sure. Final quick question, Minister. If we do agree that this situation was allowed to develop for years, what do you say in response to Herman Mashaba, who says the state should be charged with culpable homicide because these deaths, multiple deaths, could have been avoided?
Unfortunately, you can ask that question back to Mashaba. Right now, I'm doing what this government needs to do. I'm doing what needs to be done to support the people who died. And I'm here to support the people who have got nowhere to go. I'm here because I need to get the people who are still here, hoping that they can go back to the building. I'm here to tell them it's not possible for them to go back into the building. I'm here to tell them and give them where the shelters are. I'm here to deal with a disaster, and I'm here also to say, what do we do moving forward? Because going back and forth is not going to help anybody. And if Herman Mashaba has got issues that he wants, he knows exactly where to go with those issues. Right now, I'm in front of the people that need help.
All right, thank you very much for your time. Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu.